I've been dating my boyfriend, 16-year-old male, for 2 years now. Our parents have been best friends since college due to our mothers being in the same program, and our fathers followed suit after being introduced. He was my childhood best friend, and there has been an expectation that we would date at some point in our lives. My mom is less pushy than his mom, but she did encourage me to pursue him ever since middle school. Dating him has been great. We have our petty arguments, due to his occasional jealousy and my own insecurities, but nothing has been this big. He asked me to come to his house for our 2-year anniversary. I missed the actual day due to a family vacation out of state. We were just hanging out in his room. He was being more touchy than usual, which I tried to stop because I knew what was going to keep happening if he kept going, and I didn't like that his parents were home. He got mad for a second before smiling and saying he had a gift for me. He walked to his dresser, pulled out a box, and then got on one knee. He told me how happy he was with me and how he never wanted to lose me. I tried to convince myself it was a promise ring, but when he opened it, it was his mom's engagement ring. I just stared. He stared at me, and I couldn't get words out. I eventually stood up and told him to give me a minute, telling him I had to go to the bathroom. But I instead ran out of the house and walked home. Both of my parents were home, but my mom looked at me with a big smile. As they were asking me how it went, I just ran up to my room. Ever since then, I haven't texted my boyfriend, but he's been texting me nonstop, with things ranging from, "Did you not like the ring? Why didn't you tell me you were leaving? Why are you giving up on us?" I feel like if I break up with him, I will ruin our parents' friendship, but I also don't want to get married. Can I even get married at 16? I've been talking about college recently because he knows it means a lot to me. I'm wondering if I should talk to my parents before I talk to him. Maybe sit both parents down to figure out why he wanted to propose. But the fact that he had his mother's ring made me think at least his mom was in on it. I really don't know. To add more info, I was told by a commenter to add some things. It was only my mom who seemed excited, giddy when I walked in the door. My dad waved at me and acknowledged I came home. He acted normally. I was also told to put how me and my boyfriend started dating. He asked me out at our 8th grade dance. I was with mutual friends, and he asked me out then and there. I felt pressured due to everyone looking at me, so I told him to give me some time. It didn't help that his mom picked us up after the dance, and she seemed really giddy, expecting as well, but calmed down when she felt the tension. We had a sleepover planned for that night, so I didn't get much time alone, but I still didn't give him a response until about 3 days later. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Hi, it's OP. I read the subreddit's rules and I'm only allowed one update. I'm waiting for the situation to be fully dealt with and hopefully a happy ending before making an actual post. But I have started talking with my dad. I waited for my mom to leave the house to talk to him, and he was happy I was open to talking with him because he could tell I was upset, but didn't know how to bring it up to me. I mentioned a lot of points. Thank you to the people who helped me know what to say. I started by explaining everything that happened that day, and then mentioning toxic behaviors my cousin and best friend pointed out. He was shocked and angry, not at me. We talked about more personal things, our dynamic as father and daughter, and how we will always protect me. He said as a teenager, this isn't something I should have to deal with. He was also open with my mom's hypothetical involvement. My mom had been hyping up our anniversary for a while, saying things like, "This one is special," and "I hope he records it so we can re-watch it." My mom told him we were going to have a romantic dinner at his house, so he ignored it. My mom was apparently upset that our vacation fell on our actual anniversary and even tried to convince my dad to come back earlier to invite my boyfriend, which he said no to. This information basically confirmed to both of us my mom knew exactly what was planned, which makes us feel worse. My dad said we can talk more when my mom isn't in the house, but he said he will try to talk with her about the situation. The goal is for all of us to sit down and have a conversation. Comment 2. Dating him has been great. We have our petty arguments due to his occasional jealousy and my own insecurities. He told me how happy he was with me and how he never wanted to lose me. I've been talking about college recently because he knows it means a lot to me. Yeah. IMO, it seems like he's freaked out that you will be going to college and he's trying to lock you down. Most high school relationships don't make it through the first year of college because people grow up a lot very fast when they are on their own for the first time. I feel like if I break up with him, I will ruin our parents' friendship, but I also don't want to get married. If their friendship cannot be separated from the romantic interests of their children, then they weren't actually solid friends anyways. You are not responsible for your parents' social lives, only your own life. Asking you to marry him at 16 seems like a step too far. I would look over your relationship thus far and see if there are any other weird red flags you have been missing. I personally would take a step back from this relationship if I were you, at a minimum, if you're not committed to a full breakup quite yet. Now, for the update. Hey everyone, a lot has happened since my last post. After the whole proposal incident, I finally decided to talk to my parents. I sat them down and explained everything that happened, including how uncomfortable I felt. My mom was surprisingly understanding, but she did admit that she knew about the proposal. She thought it was sweet and didn't realize how much pressure it would put on me. My dad, on the other hand, was completely shocked and said he had no idea. He was more concerned about my feelings and told me to take my time to figure things out. I also decided to talk to my boyfriend. I went over to his house and we had a long conversation. He was really upset and kept asking why I ran away. I told him that I wasn't ready for such a big step and that it felt like too much pressure. He seemed to understand, but I could tell he was still hurt. He admitted that his mom had been pushing him to propose because she thought it would be a good way to keep us together, especially with college coming up. Things were awkward between us for a while, but we tried to go back to normal. However, a few weeks later, something happened that changed everything. My boyfriend's mom started planning a big family dinner and invited my parents and me. I didn't think much of it at first, but then I overheard my mom talking on the phone with his mom. They were discussing wedding plans and how they thought it would be a good idea for us to get married before college. I was furious. I felt like they were trying to control my life and make decisions for me. I confronted my mom about it, and she tried to calm me down, saying that they were just talking and nothing was set in stone. But I couldn't shake the feeling that they were trying to push me into something I wasn't ready for. Around this time, I started getting closer to a guy in my class. We had a lot in common, and he was really supportive when I told him about everything that was going on. We started hanging out more, and I realized that I had feelings for him. This made things even more complicated because I still cared about my boyfriend, but I couldn't ignore my feelings for this new guy. One day, my boyfriend found out that I had been spending time with this other guy. He was really upset and accused me of cheating on him. I tried to explain that we were just friends, but he didn't believe me. He said that if I really loved him, I wouldn't be spending so much time with someone else. This led to a huge argument, and we ended up breaking up. The fallout from the breakup was intense. Our parents were really upset and tried to get us to reconcile, but I stood my ground. I told them that I needed to focus on myself and figure out what I wanted. My boyfriend's mom was especially angry and blamed me for ruining everything. She even stopped talking to my mom for a while, which caused a lot of tension between our families. As I tried to move on, I started dating the new guy. He was really sweet and understanding, but things didn't go as smoothly as I hoped. My ex-boyfriend started spreading rumors about us, saying that we had been together while we were still dating. This caused a lot of drama at school, and I felt like everyone was judging me. I tried to ignore it, but it was really hard. In the midst of all this, I found out that my ex-boyfriend had started dating someone else. At first, I was relieved because I thought it would take the pressure off me. But then I heard that his new girlfriend was someone who had always had a crush on him and had been waiting for us to break up. This made me feel even worse because it felt like everything was falling apart. As I struggled to deal with all the drama, I started to think about my own future. I realized that I had been so focused on my relationship and what everyone else wanted that I hadn't really thought about what I wanted. I decided to focus on my studies and my own goals. I started applying to colleges and thinking about what I wanted to do with my life, but things didn't get easier. My ex-boyfriend's mom continued to make things difficult for me. She would make snide comments whenever she saw me and even tried to get my mom to convince me to get back together with her son. My mom tried to stay neutral, but I could tell she was struggling with the situation as well. One day, I overheard my mom talking to my dad about how she felt guilty for pushing me into the relationship in the first place. She said that she just wanted me to be happy and didn't realize how much pressure it would put on me. This made me feel a little better because it showed that she understood what I was going through. As I continued to focus on my own goals, I started to feel more confident in myself. I realized that I didn't need a relationship to define me and that I could be happy on my own. I started spending more time with my friends and doing things that I enjoyed. But just when I thought things were getting better, something happened that threw everything into chaos. My ex-boyfriend's new girlfriend found out that he had been cheating on her with someone else. She was devastated and broke up with him, which caused even more drama at school. My ex-boyfriend tried to get back together with me, but I told him that I couldn't trust him anymore. This led to another huge argument, and he ended up telling everyone that I was the reason for all his problems. This made things even worse for me because now everyone at school was blaming me for everything that had happened. I felt like I couldn't escape the drama no matter what I did. In the end, I realized that I needed to focus on myself and my own happiness. I decided to cut ties with my ex-boyfriend and his family and focus on my own goals. It was a difficult decision, but I knew it was the right one for me. Thank you for reading. Aita, for cutting off our drunk friend after he broke into our house and let our cats escape. Myself, 30-year-old female, and my husband, 30-year-old male, have a very good friend who we will call Barry, 29-year-old male. Barry and my husband are high school friends. Barry loves to drink and party and never really toned down the college lifestyle. My husband and I are pretty tame. We don't really party. Occasionally drink socially and wine on special occasions type of people. We used to moderately party in our 20s, but nothing like Barry. Over the years, we've made comments when his behavior has gone south, and we've had to deal with a few times where he needed to be escorted out of the place and sent home in a cab. We had to send him away from our wedding, for example, for getting up and jumping on a table, and the venue was not having it, which is fair. It was not a table dancing vibe. My grandma was shocked, LOL. So this weekend, my husband and I went away for our anniversary to a hotel, only 45 minutes away. We got woken up to a phone call from our neighbor that someone had broken in. Obviously, we panicked, and my husband rushed home, and I and my neighbor contacted the police. It turns out Barry got blackout drunk, broke into our house, passed out on our bed, vomited everywhere, and let our 2 cats escape. We were mortified and angry and overall saddened for him, and we don't know where to take it from here. We've often heard Barry complain about how he doesn't have a problem and that he hates preachy people. My husband and I are in disagreement about whether to try to help him or just cut him off, or how we even go about addressing this. We aren't pressing charges, but my husband told him we need to see him and have a discussion, which he agreed to. I'm 4 months pregnant and don't want to deal with any crap when little Peanut arrives. Are there tried and true ways to approach these conversations from maybe a medical standpoint or something? I am fortunate that I've never really been around anyone with a drug or alcohol problem. We know Barry drinks, and I know he occasionally does other things. I feel we've outgrown the friendship, but I do understand that my husband wants to help his friend. How do you broach this? Now for an update. We did find our cats safe and sound. They both came home to the back door. And as for the damages, we also spoke with Barry's parents, who came and collected him because, of course, he lives at home. And we were almost too shocked to speak to him the day this happened, who assured us that one way or another, it will be paid for. Although I don't feel right knowing it will come out of their old age pension, surely, so that's still up in the air. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Alcoholic here. Tell him you'll see him when he's sober and are wishing him the best. Change your locks. Only when he's forced to confront his addiction and bad behavior because he's being pushed away by his friends and family, will he start thinking of changing. You're doing him a favor and watching out for your own interests at the same time by cutting him off. He may never change. Or he might show up one day having gotten the help he needs and become a good friend again. But talking to him right now won't help. And you can't let someone who is off the rails like that in your life as you prepare for a family. Good luck. Comment 2. So Barry got blackout drunk and committed several felonies, DUI, breaking and entering, property damage. I bet a couple others could be tacked on without too much trouble. It sounds like he is lucky he isn't having to post bail. I think being preachy would be kind of a slow pitch at this point. I expect Barry is going to have to end up in rehab, or some version of Alcoholics Anonymous. But before that, I expect there is going to be a felony arrest to bring him up short. If he's lucky, it is going to just be stop drinking and not have to involve detoxing off of alcohol or getting alcoholism treatments. Now for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for reading the last post. After the incident, we decided to have that talk with Barry. We invited him over to our place, and it was clear from the moment he walked in that he was nervous. My husband started by expressing our concerns and how his actions had affected us. Barry was defensive at first, saying he didn't remember anything and that it was just a mistake. But as we continued, he started to break down. He admitted that he had been struggling with more than just alcohol. He confessed to using drugs more frequently than we had known, and that he felt trapped in a cycle he couldn't escape. This revelation hit us hard. We had suspected he was using drugs occasionally, but we didn't realize the extent of it. My husband and I were torn between wanting to help him and feeling like we needed to protect our own family, especially with the baby on the way. Barry promised he would seek help, but we weren't sure if we could trust him. We decided to give him one last chance, but with strict conditions. He had to attend rehab and show us proof of his progress. In the meantime, we had to deal with the fallout from the break-in. Barry's parents were true to their word and paid for the damages, but it was awkward and uncomfortable. They were clearly embarrassed and ashamed of their son's behavior. We felt guilty taking their money, but we couldn't afford to cover the costs ourselves. It was a difficult situation, and it strained our relationship with them. As Barry started rehab, we hoped for the best, but prepared for the worst. We checked in on him regularly, and at first, it seemed like he was making progress. He was attending his sessions and seemed more focused and determined. But then, about a week into his treatment, we got a call from the rehab center. Barry had left without completing the program. He had checked himself out and disappeared. We were devastated. We had put so much hope into his recovery, and now it felt like we were back to square one. My husband was especially affected. He had always seen Barry as a brother, and this felt like a betrayal. We tried to reach out to Barry, but he didn't respond to our calls or messages. It was like he had vanished. During this time, I started to reflect on our history with Barry. I remembered a time in college when Barry had a similar breakdown. He had been caught cheating on an exam and was almost expelled. My husband had stood by him then, helping him get through it and convincing the school to give him another chance. Barry had promised to change, but looking back, it was clear that he never really did. He always found a way to avoid responsibility and rely on others to bail him out. This pattern of behavior made me realize that Barry's problems were deeper than we had understood. He had always struggled with accountability and had a tendency to run away from his problems. It was a harsh reality, but it made us see that we couldn't save him. He had to want to save himself. As the days passed, we tried to move on with our lives. We focused on preparing for the baby and rebuilding our home. But the situation with Barry was always in the back of our minds. We worried about him and wondered if he was okay. It was a constant source of stress and anxiety. Then, about a week after Barry left rehab, we got another call. This time it was from the police. Barry had been arrested for possession of drugs. He was in a bad state, and they needed someone to come and get him. My husband was torn. He wanted to help his friend, but he also knew that this might be the wake-up call Barry needed. We decided to let him face the consequences of his actions. This decision was incredibly difficult, but it felt like the right thing to do. Barry needed to hit rock bottom before he could truly start to rebuild his life. We hoped that this arrest would be the turning point for him, but we also knew that we couldn't keep putting our lives on hold for him. As we dealt with the aftermath of Barry's arrest, I started to think about my own family history. My uncle had struggled with addiction for years, and it had torn our family apart. I remembered the pain and heartache it caused, and I didn't want that for my own family. It made me more determined to protect our home and our future child. In the end, we decided to cut ties with Barry. It was a painful decision, but it felt necessary. We couldn't keep enabling his behavior, and we needed to focus on our own lives. We hoped that he would find the help he needed, but we couldn't be the ones to save him. Thanks for reading. Aita, for moving out of my Phil's house to save my marriage from his controlling behavior. I'm 24 years old, female. I just got married to my husband, who is 29 years old, male. We live with his father because he is recently widowed 5 months ago. We don't live in the same house. We live in the guest house on the property that my husband and his brothers built. My husband has 3 siblings, but 2 don't get along with the dad, and the third lives over 30 minutes away. Anyway, my husband and I have been having dinners with his dad every night. Now, I'm still trying to live my independent life. My husband knew this. I told him I'm still trying to work and not ready for kids yet because I'm just not ready for that. The thing is, my father-in-law is extremely difficult and picky. He critiques everything, has a comment about everything you do or say, and talks badly about people like it's his job. The problem is, should I feel guilty for not eating with them every night? My husband refuses to have dinners with just the two of us. The father-in-law has to be included, and he's picky. My husband works late, doing stuff for his own personal business goals, and I've been working a lot of dinner shifts lately. I don't have to work tonight, but I have to run an errand for my day job, and I'm going shopping with my friend. The thing is, I feel guilty not making dinner because I want to cook for my husband, but I really cannot stand his dad, and he makes me extremely uncomfortable. It's easier to just leave them be, especially since half of the things I'd love to cook, the dad won't even look at, and my husband would end up cooking something else for him. It sounds horrible, and I don't avoid it if I'm home, but if I have something to do you think it's valid for them to be upset that I'm not there for dinner? I think my father-in-law is going to make comments to me when I'm there for dinner after the week of me working overtime and say something about how I've been away too many nights or something. I don't know. I guess the point is that the father has way too much control over my husband. We're both scared of him. And I've been avoiding dinner time at the house because I'm scared of his father. And it's hard to make something that the dad will feel like eating that night. In a way, it shouldn't fall on my shoulders, since my husband is the one deciding to do it this way and work that late, but I still feel somehow responsible. Almost forgot. I made a post about him yesterday, but I feel like this issue is easier for others to comment on. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. You don't have to eat with your father-in-law. You married your husband, not the two of them. If your husband wants to prepare dinner and have it with his father each night, he needs to take care of that responsibility. And the biggest question here is why your husband is putting his father's needs before yours. You're supposed to leave your parents and put your wife first. It's not your fault his father is lonely. You don't owe him anything. But I'd sit down and tell your husband that he needs to choose between the two of you. Perhaps you can set one night a week to have dinner with him. Otherwise, I would do what I want and let your husband do whatever he wants. But this doesn't sound like a relationship where he's willing to make any kind of compromise whatsoever. Comment 2. Is the father-in-law disabled or something? Why can't he cook his own meals? I understand him being a widower of 5 months, but at some point, he has to move on and learn to be self-sufficient. Living on the same property as him is not helping your case because your husband feels obligated to help his dad. But honestly, unless some boundaries are set, this will be your life going forward. Now, for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for reading my last post. So, a lot has happened in the past few days and it's been pretty overwhelming. First off, I did end up skipping dinner with my father-in-law and husband a few nights ago. I had to run that errand for my day job and then went shopping with my friend just like I planned. When I got back, my husband was already home and he looked really stressed out. He told me that his dad had been complaining about me not being there for dinner and how it was disrespectful. My husband tried to defend me, but it just turned into a huge argument between them. My father-in-law even brought up how I wasn't ready for kids yet and how that was selfish of me. It was a mess. The next day, things got even worse. My husband came home from work and told me that his dad had called his brothers to complain about me. Apparently, his dad told them that I was causing problems in the family and that I was trying to drive a wedge between him and my husband. This led to one of his brothers, the one who lives 30 minutes away, coming over to talk to us. He was really upset and accused me of being manipulative and trying to isolate my husband from his family. I tried to explain my side of the story, but he wasn't having it. He left in a huff, and now there's even more tension in the family. On top of all this, my husband and I had a big fight about the whole situation. He said he felt stuck between me and his dad and didn't know what to do. I told him that I couldn't keep living like this, constantly walking on eggshells around his father and feeling guilty for not being there for dinner every night. He said he understood, but didn't know how to fix things. We ended up going to bed angry, and things have been really tense between us ever since. The next day, I decided to take matters into my own hands and talk to my father-in-law directly. I went over to the main house and tried to have a calm conversation with him about how I was feeling and how his behavior was affecting me. He didn't take it well. He got really defensive and accused me of trying to turn his son against him. He even brought up some old family issues that I had no idea about, like how his wife used to do everything for him and how he expected the same from me. It was clear that he had some deep-seated expectations and wasn't willing to budge. After that conversation, I felt completely defeated. I went back to the guest house and just broke down. My husband found me crying and tried to comfort me, but I could tell he was just as lost as I was. We talked about maybe moving out and finding our own place, but with his dad being recently widowed and needing support, it didn't seem like a viable option. Plus, my husband felt a strong sense of duty to stay and help his dad, even though it was causing so much strain on our relationship. The fallout from all this has been pretty intense. My husband and I have been arguing more and more, and it's starting to take a toll on our marriage. I feel like I'm constantly on edge, trying to avoid any confrontation with my father-in-law, but it's impossible to avoid him completely. My husband's caught in the middle, trying to please both me and his dad, but it's clear that it's wearing him down too. In the midst of all this, I found out something that really shook me. My husband confided in me that his dad had always been controlling and difficult, even when his mom was alive. He told me about how his mom used to bend over backward to keep the peace and how it eventually led to her being completely worn out and unhappy. Hearing this made me realize that this wasn't just about me. It was a pattern of behavior that had been going on for years. It made me even more determined to find a way to break the cycle, but I had no idea how to do it. One night, after another argument with my husband, I decided to take a drive to clear my head. I ended up at a park where I used to go as a kid, and I just sat there, thinking about everything that had happened. I realized that I couldn't keep living like this, constantly trying to please everyone and feeling guilty for not being able to. I needed to find a way to stand up for myself and set some boundaries, even if it meant causing more tension in the short term. When I got back home, I had a long talk with my husband. I told him that I loved him and wanted to make our marriage work, but I couldn't keep sacrificing my own happiness and well-being to please his dad. I told him that we needed to find a way to set some boundaries and make our own decisions as a couple, without his dad's constant interference. My husband agreed, but I could tell he was still struggling with the idea of standing up to his dad. The next day, we sat down with my father-in-law and tried to have another conversation about setting some boundaries. It didn't go well. He got really angry and accused us of being ungrateful and disrespectful. He even threatened to cut us off financially if we didn't start doing things his way. It was a nightmare. In the end, my husband and I decided that we needed to move out, even if it meant struggling financially for a while. We started looking for a place to rent and made plans to move out as soon as possible. It was a tough decision, but we knew it was the only way to save our marriage and find some peace. Thanks for reading. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.